Gordon Smith saying good afternoon from Denmark. Ted Ryman down in Cape Town in the Republic of South Africa. Ed Worley, hello everyone. That's down in SoCal. The Gillinghams, Christopher and Jane, checking in from the Solent. They're cruising this week in the Solent. That looks nice. Sounds nice. Graham Sweeney in Shetland, up in Scotland, northern GBR. Alistair Murray G'day from down under. Alistair, he's got a great comment here. We're going to talk about this action in Victoria, Melbourne. And I'm using a comment that he has, and maybe on Friday we could try to get Alistair on, which is his Saturday morning. Here we go again. Joe Cool's up in the Delta, San Francisco in the Delta. It must be hot up there, as it is in SoCal, Tier DeYoung says. And it's time to get this one, Julia.
Yes, sir.
Off the dock.
Here we go. Ooh, that's a good picture.
Isn't that a nice shot?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a cool shot. Steve Atkins making the start. I'm in the box. Wet New England. Peter Taylor in New York City. Julie Aaron saying hello to all the Fozy from sunny Cleveland. Who else is on here? Anybody else? Fritz Mueller down in Miami. Julia?
Yep.
Looks nice. You buckled in, ready to go?
Absolutely.
Maybe I should put our lower thirds up. You know what I don't see? I don't see the downstream keyer on. We better turn that on. There's the downstream keyer. Hi, everybody. Tom Eamon here in Studio B at the Beach Street Yacht Club with my co-host, the Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club, the coordinating producer of the show, Julia Vatican.
Hello.
I trust you're well.
I am.
Any hot tips?
Not really, but I was paused today in the newspaper, the Chronicle, when
San Francisco Chronicle.
Yep. 4 guys just got finished rowing across the Pacific in 87 days.
I'm glad I'm not one of them.
Me too.
Emmett is saying happy Tuesday and Wednesday for those down under. Clark Chapin, oops, maybe shouldn't have pushed that button. What button did you push, Clark? Happy to be here. It's still hot in North Texas, Bob Walker is saying. And Clark Chapin, the 99th annual Bayview Mackinac race has concluded, the longest continuously run freshwater distance race in the world. And we get this one off the road, off the dock, off the starting line. This picture that you so love, Julia, is, you know what that is in the background?
I do.
The Fastnet Rock, the Fastnet Lighthouse. Their boats are starting on Saturday to go out there and round it to port in what is the largest offshore race in the world. Big deal. And we're going to talk about it in a minute, that beautiful shot from the Royal Ocean Racing Club, just to get us in the mood. Mm-hmm. Our show today is featuring Road to the Governor's Cup Episode 4, but I want to thank the kids, the skippers, that were with us last Friday on 633 for Episode 3. Max Paul, Cole Tapper, and Marcello Torre from Oz. They were terrific. It was, these interviews, Julia, are so much fun.
Oh, they were, and they were good.
And they're nice kids, they're bright kids, and so on and so forth. So we're delighted to have another one today, Episode 4. 2 Americans are going to be live to tape. But before we get into that, Bravo Zulu. We got 3 Bravo Zulus, if you saw there in the show notes at the top of the show. First of all, not directly related, indirectly related to our beloved sport, was on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And the BBC called this break point.
Oh, yes.
When he broke his racket across the right end of the net, when I think he thought he was going to break Carlos Alcaraz from Spain. This is, of course, Djokovic. Mm-hmm. And Novak thought he was going to break him and didn't. And then he got broken in the second, I guess it was the second game of that 5th and final set. It was a fabulous match. And I know a lot of you were watching. We were texting back and forth. and he lost his cool, and I think that was the turning point in the match championship. Carlos went on, the Spaniard, but young. He's what, only 20 years old, went on to win. He won the gold
and
trophy. Cute.
Yeah.
He is cute. And he's bright, and he's obviously a hell of a good tennis player. This is his second major win. And our beloved sport is sponsored, as is Wimbledon, by Rolex in many respects. And I thought we would start with this. Thank Rolex for all they do for sport everywhere, including Wimbledon. And watch this 30-second video that was posted within minutes, maybe 45 minutes max, to YouTube after Mr. Alcaraz's win. Carlos, champions are crowned. Now, I don't know if you were watching the TV, Julia, but right after he was done, he went back and put his racket away, and he's getting ready for the prize giving with the royalty and so on with Princess Kate. And he put on a watch. And it wasn't just any watch. He put on this watch that is a Daytona, the Rolex Oyster Perpetual, that apparently it's worth $100,000 or more, and the price keeps going up. And apparently there's a very limited selection of these that have rock or minerals from asteroids.
Wow.
From off, they're out of this world in every sense of the word. Now, this kid lives in Murcia with his parents above a kebab shop. He's just won £3.5 million or euros or dollars or something.
Right.
But modest and humble he is, and he took a taxi home from the airport Monday and went straight to his parents' home, and here's the video.
No, pero es que no estoy aquí para responder preguntas, perdóname. Muchísimas gracias, ya, pero muy bien, pero no ves que me estoy agarrando, que llevo todo el viaje, llevo cansado. Muchísimas gracias. Muchísimas gracias.
He just, no pretense, he just trying to be nice, go into this apartment above literally the kebab shop there a kebab shop in Murcia, they're all over Spain, and smiles and goes up, but he does come back out. They start shouting, "Carlo, Carlo!" Spaniards don't pronounce the S. And he comes out on the balcony from his parents' apartment where he lives. And bravo, Zulu. I mean, this thing was, Julia, it was a class act.
It was.
The Wimbledon is such a class act. They've maintained their traditions. They still wear the white clothes. They still play 5 sets. That match went on for almost 5 hours.
I saw that.
Just short of 5 hours. I watched every minute of it.
Did you?
Yeah, and I was cheering for him. I think,
yeah.
I don't know why, but I was. And I know a lot of others of you were too. Djokovic has had a fabulous career, and maybe the torch has now been passed from the older generation, from Nadal and Djokovic and so on, to this new young guy. But look at this. What a class act. He's got his watch on now. And Novak's got an Hublot watch on. But bravo, Zulu, to everybody, to Wimbledon, to Rolex, to these two guys whose speeches were gracious. The whole thing. And I'm just wondering why, first of all, do we have a Wimbledon in our sport? Why don't we maintain, the America's Cup used to be our Wimbledon with the history and tradition, like Masters Golf down at Augusta in Georgia, or the British Open, or some other things that we can all point to in our own countries, in our sport or otherwise. But what a fantastic job they did. Bravo, Zulu, to the television production, to everybody involved. I was thoroughly and utterly impressed, as you can tell.
Oh, and should have been. I didn't watch every second of it, but I saw the highlights of it at the end, too.
Gordon Smith saying, champions are crowned. Very clever. Yes, that is a clever play on words. Hello, Ken Saban in Toledo. David James, will those turn into watch ads? Probably. Yeah, on the Rolex Big Boat Series here in San Francisco, the Rolex Sydney Hobart, and, of course, coming up, Gordon Smith, as you well know, we've got the Rolex Fastnet race coming up. We're going to talk about that as well. Today's show is Road to the GovCup episode 4. We'll have that for you in a moment. But speaking of the Fastnet race, it starts Saturday. And it is the largest offshore race in the world, sponsored, of course, by Rolex. This year is special because it is the 50th edition of the Fastnet race. And yeah, they've changed it a little bit by finishing in France instead of back in the UK, but that's an adjustment, I think, still maintaining the tradition. So they start in Cowes, right off the squadron, the Royal Yacht Squadron, go out around the Fastnet Rock to port and finish the 695 nautical mile race in Cherbourg over across the channel in France. This beautiful picture we showed at the top of the show, I just love it so much I wanted to play it again, air it again, and use that as the backdrop for this astonishing record of the entries for this year's race. 379 IRC yachts total, and breakdown, you can see the IRC 1, the bigger boats have 103 boats, 50 boats in the IRC zeros. And IRC in the what they call the 2H, 106 boats, the Class 40, which is large, and 29 IMOCA. 29 IMOCA in this. Unbelievable.
I didn't know there were 29 IMOCA.
Well, exactly. When they're, for some of them, this is a qualifier for, ongoing IMOCA stuff. The old teams have 2. And then the Ocean 50s, which is a growing fleet of 6 boats, all told 455 yachts in this year's 50th edition of the Rolex Fastnet. Here's a video that Rolex just put out about the history and tradition of the race. It's, again, one of these fabulous Rolex videos not to be missed.
What makes the Rolex Fastnet race an iconic race? I think history.
We're talking about the biggest offshore fleet in any race anywhere in the world at any time.
Tactically, probably one of the most complex races.
The first time anyone does it, finishing is the target.
Even if you've done it many times, you don't really know what you're going to face.
It's a really tough 3-4 day event. It's a hell of a big challenge.
You're amongst this huge fleet of boats of all shapes and sizes.
It is a classic race. It's iconic.
Getting across the finish line is a monumental achievement.
If you think back in 1925, there were 6 or 7 boats. And we've now, move on 98 years, and the race still attracts the smaller boats, which is fundamental and very important to the race, but also to that top end, big end of the professional classes.
We're on the same pitch, and I don't think there's anywhere else really that you can compete with the top sailors in the world or the top sportsmen in the world on the same field. I could do a Fastnet on a much smaller budget or a much bigger budget, but I'm still in a Fastnet race and I'm still competing for the same prize, and I think that's incredible.
And what is attractive is the variety of conditions you're going to face over the 3 or 3.5 or 4 days. Racing is serious. It can be dangerous at some point.
When you can see boats jumping off waves, most normal races, you'd avoid those conditions, but this is the Fastnet and you push through it, and you're pushing hard as well.
Going around the rock is always an emotional time. It's a time when we get together as a crew and celebrate the stage we've got to in the race.
The Fastnet Rock is, I've always said, is a mythical place.
It's always magic with this very powerful lighthouse on the middle of this rock island.
It rightly deserves that accolade of being the world's biggest yacht race. And to a lot of Corinthian sailors, we need to respect that this is their Everest. This potentially will be the biggest race they'll ever do in their lives, and one on their bucket list. And hopefully, and I wish them all the best of luck, they'll achieve that dream.
Is that a nice video or what?
It's wonderful. What I was thinking is how many people will really get to see that?
Well, we're going to tell you at least how to watch the start coming up here, because it starts this Saturday at 1300 British Summer Time, BST, which is 1200 UTC, which is dark 30 here, -8 from British Summer Time to here. So it's 0500 here on the Pacific side of the country. But you can watch it on the race website, at least the start. And it's, all those classes starting right off the starting line there in front of the squadron. The Rolex Fastnet race start this Saturday, 1300 British Summertime. On the website, on the RORC YouTube, which is a hell of a good YouTube page, as well as their Facebook page. They've got a big following, 110,000 followers on the RORC's Facebook page. Bravo Zulu, great stuff. Looking forward to it this Saturday, the start of the 50th edition of the largest offshore race in the world, the Fastnet race, the Rolex Fastnet race. Another Bravo Zulu. We're going at it here. Seems to me we ought to do this Olympic update from the test event in Marseille. We told you on Friday that the first Paris 2024 test event in all the sports, this is from Olympic.com, was taking place in Marseille in the south of France from the 9th through the 16th. It ended on Sunday. 10 sailing events were being held at the Marseille Marina as athletes, organizers, volunteers, and locals experienced the Olympic atmosphere a little over a year before the next games. And of course, they call it a test event because not only are the athletes testing the waters and wind and conditions, but the event organizers are getting a chance to test their systems, the race management, scoring, and so on, getting in and out of the marina. So that was, as I said, ended on Sunday. We got a couple of standout performances. I'm not going to go through every winner. We'll play a video here in a sec that highlights most of them. But Matt Weirin from Australia, you got to give this kid credit. He's really good in the ILCA 7. And we're not focusing on the ILCAs here because of John Emmett or anything else, but it was a hard-fought match, really, between Olympic champion Matt Weirin, who was the gold medalist from Tokyo, and he snatched the gold from under the nose of Mickey Beckett, from GBR, the British ILCA 7 sailor, in a dramatic medal race at the Paris 2024 test event last weekend in Marseille. And he was brilliant. You can go read about it. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but this guy and the Australian team did pretty well, not as well as the French and the Dutch, who were pretty astonishing. Speaking of the Dutch, Marit Bouwmeester won big in the ILCA 6. She won so big that the gold was already in hand before the medal race. Marit took the lead on Tuesday and never looked back, winning gold with 44 points, 19 points ahead of longtime adversary, or as Sean Connery would have said, adversary, Anne-Marie Rindam of Denmark. Bouwmeester said, quote, "Winning never gets comfortable, and it's always fun. I'm leaving soon to see my baby girl, and we'll do the celebrations at home. I love performing on home waters, and the aim will be to do the same at the World Championships, which are in Aarhus in Denmark in a few weeks. It sets that's into the quote. It sets an immaculate tone for her tilt at a second Olympic title next summer, which would see Bouwmeester overtake, if she does, get a gold, overtake Hannah Mills. In fact, even a medal would overtake Hannah Mills from Great Britain as the most decorated female Olympic sailor of all time. So bravo Zulu, especially to the two of them, but also, as I said, to the countries of Netherlands and France. France had, I think they were the top country in terms of their performance. But here's the video from World Sailing.
Super happy. It was not easy in the water because the first one before the medal race was quite in front of us. So we were just focused on do our best in the water, and then at the end it was enough to win the gold medal. So we're super happy. I think we didn't realize it yet.
Pretty crazy because I've been on water for 2 hours before, looking at quarterfinals, semi-finals. Then we went to the final. We wish each other good luck. And first start, I saw it was early. Nicolo was really early on the line, and I was early as well. But I just deep dive, deep jibe, and like stop before the line. He was over, so he went out. And then we're like with Basti. Amazing to be with him. Like we are currently the two only world champion or like a foil. And we just pushed so hard. We're fighting for the pin. And then we took a start, and we're both over. So basically, no final. And we just get back to the ranking of the week. And I think Basti taking second place, and Nicole is getting to third. So yeah, I think it's an interesting story for test event.
Yeah, I'm feeling super happy. Like I did a really good job today, and all the week was super hard for me. Yeah, I'm just glad to be here and super happy to be the first one.
I mean, we already went into it very well, but you always just want to end it well. And we certainly did that, so two very happy girls.
It's quite sad because the Swedes who were on second are injured. So we were quite excited to race them as well today, but unfortunately they needed to bail out and focus on the recovery. So it was a little bit different, but we still wanted to put a good race down, and we managed to do that, so that was nice.
And you've got these situations like when the flag goes up that someone was over early, and you have to make the decision together. Was it us? Are we going to go back? Are we going to continue? So that's very good practice for the Worlds and for next year.
Test. Yeah, we still went out to do well in the medal race, and we had a poor start. We were kind of close with the front pack, and then we came around in second. Had a good battle with the British, and then we ended up just overtaking them. So it was a very nice medal race.
Okay, so that's the, it's an okay video. The music's okay. It's young music, Julia.
That's all right.
Huh? It's okay. Bravo Zulu, because the president of World Sailing who was there, and you would expect this, and there was a big article today on the World Sailing website saying the president was impressed with everything and blessed the organizers, not religiously, but blessed the whole, gave it his stamp of approval for the whole organization. And apparently, John Emmett will know better than I, but apparently it went pretty well. It worked. The event was okay. And as test events go, bravo Zulu to the French Sailing Federation and all involved in putting that event on. Now, what about the Americans? Well, our own, or I say our own because she's here from San Francisco and the St. Francis Yacht Club, Daniela Moros, secured both a bronze medal at the Future Olympic venue, and her nomination to Team USA for Paris 2024 Games by virtue of that bronze medal, the third place finish there, per U.S. sailing selection procedures. Now, they say nomination because U.S. Sailing nominates their athletes based on performance, and they've got some procedures, and then it's only with the, again, blessing of USOPC, our National Olympic Committee, U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee in Colorado Springs. So just because they're nominated doesn't mean they get to go, because of limited space and so on. And she, no doubt, Daniela will get the nod. She may be our only athlete of really outstanding performance. So far, she was the only medalist in the test event. I mean, she's the only real top athlete so far of our Olympic hopefuls. Mm-hmm. So the next event for everybody is I guess for the Formula Kite is at the Sailing World Championships in The Hague. Did I say in Aarhus? It's in Den Haag in the Netherlands from August 10th through the 20th. Now, what's going on with U.S. Sailing? First of all, their performance, so the rest of the U.S. Sailing, which in some ways was heartening. Daniela on in third place, so she was on the podium. Stephanie Roble and Maggie Shea were fourth in the 49er FX, so that's not bad. Just they were in the medal race. Look at all these people who were in the medal race. Stu McDay and Lara Dahlman-Weiss in the mixed 470, Ian Barrows and Hans Henken in the 49er, and Erica Reinecke in the Ilka 6 was in 10th, not very strong, but she was there. Sarah Newberry-Moore and David Liebenberg, I think they probably pronounce it Liebenberg here, in the Knacker 17, also in 10, and then down from there. So not, in some respects,
Looks pretty good.
We look a little broader,
Uh-huh.
maybe not deeper, but a little broader than we've been in the past here in the U.S. But as John Emmett likes to say, the test event pretty well tells you who you can expect to be on the podium next year.
Yeah.
Right, Julia?
Yeah.
For the Olympics themselves. Now, one hears, speaking of U.S. sailing, that just before this event, they told all the sailors in a memo, in an email, to expect no more funding for anybody for anything. You look askance. That's unbelievable. They apparently, they've sent out this email. I've heard from several people. I've been checking it out. I'm not going to go into detail now, but they have told the sailors, we're bringing all the money into their headquarters. We're not going to give stipends out to sailors. We're not going to have centralized coaching. We're not going to have centralized weather for the rest of this quadrennium. Now, I'll believe it when I see it because I think they have to do some central funding. But for whatever reason, they've apparently pulled the plug on most of the central funding from U.S. Sailing to our team. We know they got big financial problems with the whole organization. What's really going on, I don't know. If you do, let me know, because I've heard from a couple people about how U.S. Sailing really has, once again, seems to have messed up big time. Now, there may be some good news in all this, in that the athletes now have got to rely on their own resources, their own coaching, their own training partners. They're going to have to do their own thing, which is something Callahan was advocating for before, well, not to this extent, but to have open trials, let the athletes come and race, and whoever wins goes, if they get the nod from U.S. Sailing and then from the USOPC. And if they can qualify under the World Sailing regs, which isn't that difficult to do, they should be able to qualify. Whether anybody wants to fund them or not, whether it's USOPC or U.S. Sailing, to get to the Olympics, that remains to be seen. So that's
got to come as a great shock to those sailors.
Well, it was. These sailors were astonished. But I talking to Lynn Jewell and to a few others here in the last few days. I won't name others, but Lynn, who was the first female gold medalist in our sport in the women's 470 in Korea, was it in '88? She can't believe it, and I can't believe it.
And that's the whole purpose of the funding.
But the irony is this may help, because these kids now, instead of relying on U.S. Sailing for coaching and for support and physio and all this stuff, they may just say, look, we're going to have to go out and figure this out ourselves. And I think if the rest of us in the country, locally, where all these, each of where these, from the locales from where each of these sailors are from, get together and say, okay, U.S. Sailing's not going to do it, so we'd better do it. This may really ultimately help.
It might. Absolutely.
I sure hope it does, because it's looking like Croutonicism to the max right now. U.S. Sailing is upside down. Let me go to the comments. My comment box, see, my comments are not there in the box today, so we'll just read them. Bill Wingrove, I don't know, the non-sailing CEO at work, but, hopefully they're going to come back and they're going to do some central support. They're going to have to do some, like a weather person, but, let's see how many people get there.
Yeah.
How many people go? The U.S. Sailing clown is paying himself. How much did you say? Yeah, $375. Well, he's not. The board is paying him $375,000 a year. During I know that for a fact. I've seen the list. So U.S. Sailing cut the salaries of U.S. Sailing executives. They need to tighten the belts. Ed Worley, they need to do more than that. They need to cut the staff, and they need to focus on racing, fix the offshore situation. We got problems in the offshore world here. And then fix a lot of other things that are going on in the sport, and just focus on the one thing they really should be doing, which is yacht racing. It's really U.S. Sailing has become U.S. training, U.S. motorboating, U.S. a bunch of other stuff, the AAA of sailing, the American Automobile Association, and they need to focus on racing. And if they don't, we will start. I guarantee you, we will start North American Yacht Racing Union, go back to those days, or on a new American Yacht Racing Association of the U.S. We'll find somebody to help fund it. We'll find some board members and somebody to staff it, because this has got to end. If U.S. Sailing doesn't come and figure out that their raison d'etre is racing, and that all this other stuff can be done by many different organizations.
And better locally.
And better locally. What else here? John Mangino's on Graham Sweeney, and we don't want to be seen as elitist, and we are supposed to be inclusive. With U.S. Sailing cutting funding, that will reduce their talent pool greatly. Well, maybe. As I said, it's ironic, Graham, that maybe this helps. Julie Aaron saying U.S. Sailing is FUBAR. You know what FUBAR stands for, Julia? Huh? What's it stand for? Say it. Fudged up beyond all recognition.
Okay.
FUBAR.
Yeah.
Karen Robertson, not sure I've ever seen Tom so angry before. Quite right, though. I'm angry. I'm disappointed. If I weren't 70 years old, if Julia weren't 84, the two of us, would go out and form the American Yacht Racing Association, or whatever we'd call it. And not to take over Olympic sailing, but just to support racing in this country the way that Alistair does.
Yeah.
Focus it. We're going to focus on.
I know.
We're going to focus on on yacht racing. And we'd get the offshore thing sorted out, and we'd get the Olympic thing sorted out, and concentrate on racing rules and judges and race management. Bloody hell. Frustrated, not angry. Yeah, Ed Worley, I think that's fair to say. Okay, enough of that rant. But, this has got to end. And probably the only way it's going to end is either we have to go take over U.S. Sailing, put people up to go replace the croutons that are leading the org. And they're croutons, I'm sorry to say. Those of you watching, you've screwed this up to a fairly well, as the late, great Commodore Harry Anderson would have said, from whom I took over when I was executive director back in the dark ages in 1979, Julia. By the time you get to 18 years old, it is far too late for the government to help. Exactly right, David James. Ed Worley, focus on the core mission first. Exactly right. Okay.
Absolutely.
Road to the 2023 Governor's Cup, but first, let's have our report from John Emmett, who, remember his injury in Poland. He's still having quite a recovery effort, and this is maybe his most important video ever in the years he's been doing this for us. Have a look. John Emmett in the Super Fozy, and our Super Olympic coach in the coach's corner. And I'll just give you a little reminder and set the pace here, set the scene. They were in Poland at the ILCA 6 Worlds, the women's, the boys and the girls and the men's. And apparently the last night there, they went to, and how we find this stuff out, right, Julia? Sailing Illustrated has sources, impeachable sources. One hears they were at this place called the Plaza Pub and Disco. One hears that this is what it looked like inside the Plaza Beach Bar and Disco the night that John was injured, and one hears this is what was going on. This is called crowd surfing. When people jump from the stage, just as John described in his video last Friday, and he was standing innocently in the crowd, and one of these crowd surfers jumped off the stage onto his neck, onto his head, crunching his neck. So I just thought, we'd give you a little look at what was going on. And don't ask me how we get these videos. Watch this. And here's the moment. There's John. He just got crunched in the crowd. Now, how did we get that video? I never, ever reveal our sources, right, Julie? Unless the source says we can. Well, okay. I admit it. That was not the incident. Although I did check around to see if anybody had a video. But that's essentially what, that guy, that's not John. It's just kind of a lookalike in the dark there. So we had some fun with that. But, the guy's hurting for certain. And here is his report from today.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. So welcome to week 2 of John's rehab. I was trying to think what to talk about because I can't really talk about sailing very easily at the moment. So I thought I'd show you a day in the life because I'm aware a lot of sailors may have spinal issues because it's hard. Obviously, not ideal to get hit by a flying ILCA sailor, but these things happen. So I'm very lucky. This is Lily's mini gym. Part of being married to an Olympic athlete, there's a lot of tools here which are part of the recovery. one of the most important things actually is to have rest, and I am finding it very hard not to do anything. In fact, today I went for my longest walk yet, just to go out for a cup of coffee, and it was nice to get out the house, but it certainly causes the pain here. Going to show you a few things, but the key thing is not to overdo it, and that's something I'm very guilty of. So my key aim is keeping the inflammation down, and you'll see at the end of the video, one of the things I do is I do a lot of icing, literally 15-20 minutes icing every hour, around 14 times a day. But these are the tools, and things like these rollers quite often come on tour with us because they're such an important part. Obviously we don't take this whole lot, but I remember in the 2012 campaign with Lily, I used to take these weights in the hand luggage so she could always train, and I have distinct memories of being in a Japan airport and explaining to the security guard it was for lifting, not for hitting people, because they couldn't work out why I had these items. But this is a foam roller. I'm not going to go through my whole routine, and I'm going to try really hard not to pull funny faces because I am in quite a lot of pain. But regaining full range of movement is very important, and you don't actually need these tools. So one of the very basic exercises is we call cat-cow. So normally you'll go onto all fours. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to sit back, and I'm going to sit on my heels, so I'm really targeting my thoracic spine, which is where the issue is. And very simply, I'm tucking my chin and I'm breathing out. Sorry if the volume goes a bit funny now. And then breathing in and going the other way. And by sitting back like this, then I'm really looking at mobilizing that upper back, the thoracic back. You could do it sitting down. So I'm not going to go through all the exercises, but this is the stuff I do day in, day out. Good guide is just to push your hands along, and you're just doing that rounding and that chin tuck. And you can really, really push. And again, when you do the extension, if you just shrug your shoulders, you have that nice little ledge for your neck tendon. And that's the one which for me is very, very painful at the moment. Roller, new best friend. Not quite sure which way to do this. So if I do it side on, I'm just going to do like a snow angel. And this is such a good tool. I mean, if you have somebody with good flexibility, you see my head is supported. The elbows will be really low, but just imagine you're making an angel in the snow, because the thoracic movement, it's not only the extension, etc. We're looking at rotation as well, and it's all that hard upper body stuff. So the twisting is very important. So try not to pull funny faces with the pain here. So having a roller can really make it easier to do the movements, and these things we're always doing whatever 3 sets of 10 repetitions and some rest in between. But to thread the needle and get that rotation. You might even hear my spine clicking on the audio here, but the roller here just makes the movement much more focused than if you're really limited with movement. It's a big help. I mean, I would actually be able to do this movement without the roller, and I'm just following, like literally looking at my hand and then looking at my elbow just to get that rotation in that upper body. So that's the sort of thing I'm doing day in, day out. I'm quite a big believer in cold and heat therapy. In fact, I start the day, I don't like it very much, but I start the day with an ice cold shower. And I have actually limited the amount of hot showers I've had. So I'm now down to 2 hot showers every single day. I have to say my new best friend is probably my Aleve, and I'm on, crikey, over a gram a day, and I'm going to start to ease that off. In fact, you'll see I have a whole basket full of supplements, but this is the key one, and I'll come off that gradually because it's got a 12-hour half-life. I think it's gradually accumulating, so I will just remove the dose. I've been on it for over a week. And the most important thing for rest and recovery is the sleep. So I've been taking a large dose before bed so I can sleep through the night, because that's when my body's healing. And typically I would be looking at waking up in the night with the pain. So I said the one really important thing is the icing, because I used to do, in terms of training, heating, and then icing, heating, icing. I'm now limiting it to two hot showers a day, but I have 3 ice packs now, and I'm going to go and lie down for the next 15 minutes. This is enough activity for me. This icing brings the inflammation down. So it's the first thing I do in the morning, the last thing I do at night. And in terms of my body, it is much healthier than popping pills, but that's something I need to do at the moment to keep the inflammation down. So the reason I have 3 is so they're super cold. And then the active treatment is really important. And I'm going to embarrass myself if I miss someone out, but I have at least 1 treatment a day. Today I'm probably having 2 or 3, and that's chiropractor, physiotherapist, sports masseur, acupuncture, and I'm sure there's a few more in there. Week 3 I'm probably going to start doing more active stuff along the lines of Pilates, and I really feel under pressure because it's less than a month to the UK Nationals, and I'll be absolutely gutted if I can't sail. Injuries can do happen, so it's about, you know, doing the best you can. So for now I'm going to lie down for about 15 minutes, and actually, believe it or not, in a funny way, that just feels really nice to relax and cool down, get rid of that inflammation, and hopefully I'll see you on the show.
Well, he is. He's commenting like crazy here on the show. That makes me hurt.
Yeah, I'm so proud of him for doing it, and I'm sure his Olympic exposure hasn't hurt that, because he understands what it is to do all that.
Well, he does. Now, a couple of things. Everybody should go read the comments. John's made a bunch of comments, as have others, starting with Stingrays, the last comment. Well, John Emmett now said ice 14 times a day. Julie Aaron saying, I hope that you are eating enough before the NS. Yeah, exactly right. And he said you got to take food with the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And Ryman is he's saying my wife and girls have that bed and those rollers. Yeah, okay. There's on that bed on the floor, the black bed rather, on the floor, as John explained in a couple of the comments, is a massage table. Anti-inflammatory is key. Alex Kent saying no alcohol, which is inflammatory. High dose ibuprofen, ice. Everybody's got rest, ice, compression, elevation. He said thoracic in his neck. I thought it was his above that. I thought it was in the cervical, but he's had an operation in his neck already. I think he's got an appliance. I think he's for some stability in there, or maybe he's had a fusion. I can't remember, but I'm not going to say any more than I empathize totally, having had a lower back and L5S1 laminectomy when I was 21 or 2 from wearing too much weight on my upper body, sailing, sunfish, lasers, fireballs, whatever. There was no limit. We wore way too much weight. Plus, ice hockey is also bad for your lower back. And then had it again 10 years later. Had another at L4, L5. And the only piece of advice I can give is when the doctor and the physio, the PT, tells you to do something,
do it.
Do it, right?
Yes.
You go do it. You don't go play hockey as I did, or I skated anyway, 3 days after the first surgery. Like, I can't, es más macho, I can do this.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yes.
And, go sailing a week after that. You don't. You take the advice of the physio and the docs, you take the meds, and you do all this stuff that John is doing, but you do it post-op as the therapy. Second time around, I did that. And I think that's why I haven't had any significant problems since. But John, everybody's feeling not sorry. We're feeling empathetic and hoping you have a speedy recovery. Just looking at these comments, Gordon Smith, did you see that, Julie? Jane Fonda for sailor. He's not that old, Gordon. And Baton Rouge, Baton Kennan saying, yeah, still good exercises for all sailors, sail trimmers especially, stretching and so on and so forth. So go back and read John's comments, and we're all wishing him a speedy and full recovery. Now, Julia, I'll tell you one more thing. After the show, I was so after last Friday's show and seeing what, pain John was in, and
Right.
knowing that somebody crashed down on the top of his head in that surfing, that body surfing and the crowd surfing. I called Mr. Dr. McIrvin.
Oh, yes.
And I said, I don't think he'd seen the show, or maybe he had by then, but I called him pretty soon after the show. I said, would you please call up Emmett and tell him to go see a neuro? Right now, go have them look. I don't know what goes on in the NIH and the UK and health and so on, but go see your neurosurgeon. Go see not that they're going to operate. Go see the neurodoc. Go see the orthopedic guy. And if they can get a picture of it, get a scan and see what the hell's really going on. Just, these therapies are fine, but it's a matter of finances and NIH and all that stuff. And John, I don't know if Mr. Dr. McIrvin called you up. He's, I'm sure, pretty busy getting ready for Fastnet. Still not looking forward to unpacking those bags. Lily did a good job not filming them. Well, she also did a good job just filming. That was a good video from her. Obviously, you had good camera up. Banero, back and forth. I favor my right arm when lifting a fresh beer, Stingray is saying. But okay, see, it is his cervical. John's saying C5, 6, and 7, which is, I got a C3, 4 issue now, which I've had, but I'm not going to do anything about it if I can avoid it. Hence now very tight. Now he's got problems, he thinks, in the T1, the thoracic T1, T2, T3. Again, this is always a hard issue, as you know, Julia, whether to get fixed when you're younger or whether to wait and hope it goes away, or B, that the technology improves.
Yes, and all happen.
And it does sometimes go away, especially back stuff. So I think John's right to do all this stuff, and I hope he does go. I hope he goes and has the docs look at it too, just have a check, because it's obviously.
And it's well to know exactly what is happening with all the pictures, because people say, "Oh, I know what that is," and they don't.
He's also doing cupping.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Well, I hope he goes and has the docs look at it too. John, it's painful to watch you there, but speedy recovery. Hope you do. That's, of course, John Emmett Sailing. Get to the front of the fleet.
It's an important lesson for everybody, though, to know that you can't hurt yourself. And if you do, take care of it.
Yeah. And if you do have surgery, follow, again, I'm sorry to repeat, but follow what the docs tell you and the PT tells you afterwards. Because if you don't, you'll end up the way I did, which is a Crutonic with another go-around. Yeah. And maybe I would have anyway, who knows. John says, please subscribe and share and like and so on and so forth. Julia says that at the end of the show. Thank you, John, for that segment. And again, take good care. Try bloodletting, John. Only Ryman would say that. Emmett says, last neck surgery was 6 months out of action, 7 months, no sailing. Well, okay, he was careful then. Julia, we should go back. I just want to say that I failed to say in that whole segment about U.S. sailing and about the funding for the Olympians and so on, what's happened is that when Callahan quit, and was part being fired and part quit, it's not quite clear what happened, but he got frustrated and left, and I think they were trying to frustrate him away. But forget about that and the politics. What happened is that some big proportion of the $18 million that he had raised disappeared. I won't name the names, but there's some big spenders and some big sponsors who pulled back or pulled out
because
when Callahan left. And now U.S. Sailing doesn't have the money to fund the team, and therefore they said, sorry. Hopefully they'll get some back. Hopefully they'll get it. But again, the irony is I think this is going to help get some local support for these sailors. And we're going to do everything we can do on here to help the sailors. Daniela Moros is in pretty good shape here in San Francisco. St. Francis Yacht Club, the St. Francis Sailing Foundation, yada, yada. But we'll see if we can help her here locally. But anywhere in the country, in the U.S., in fact, anywhere in the world, help your sailors, especially if your federation, if your governing body can't do the thing. If you hear that little, that's not a jet, that's Julia's mic stand over there, down there. I got to turn that so that you don't, it's in the way of your feet. I'll do that during the next video. Okay, let's get to the GovCup. Speaking of videos, and we have Coming up the next week, the 24th through the 29th, Monday through the following Saturday, is the 2023, the 56th edition, 2023 edition of the Governor's Cup, the prestigious International Youth Match Racing Championship. And I probably say that at the beginning of this video, which is a little shy of 20 minutes, with two of the coolest sailors anywhere in the world today. Have a look. Welcome to episode 4 of the Road to the 2023 Governor's Cup, the prestigious International Youth Match Racing Championship, hosted annually by Balboa Yacht Club down in Newport Beach, California. Delighted to have Justin Callahan with us from Florida, originally Biscayne Bay Yacht Club. He's with us, as well as Morgan Pinckney, Newport Harbor Yacht Club representative, here, along with GovCup guru Andy Rose down in Newport Beach. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Tom. This is the middle of our series with the GovCup skippers this year. These are two of my favorites, just because they put on a show when they sail against each other, and it's truly awesome. They're also the youngest and second youngest, I believe, competitors this year. We have sort of an older group for a change. But anyway, great to be here. Thanks, Tom.
Shall we go through the slides?
Sure.
We've each of the guys has submitted some slides, and we'll start with Justin. Alphabetically, he's also the newbie, having not competed in the Governor's Cup before, but has had a terrific sailing career starting in the Opti class, I guess, Justin.
Yeah, I started out in the Optis probably when I was 9. Was fortunate enough to be teammates with my brother, and we were great training partners. Ended up winning a few team race worlds and a few team trials and nationals, so it was a great run. And started moving on to bigger and better things like match racing.
Speaking of your brother, here's a shot from here in San Francisco, I believe, with your dad, whom I've known forever. I love the guy, Paul Callahan. And this is your brother, Mitchell, who I understand is crewing for you in this year's Governor's Cup.
Yeah, we have a great team with us. I'm lucky enough to keep sailing with Mitchell. We're best friends and great teammates. So, we got Mitchell on the bow. Our best friend from back home, who we grew up sailing with, Liam, trimming main, and then my high school crew, Danny, in the pit with us. So we got a great team coming, and we're super excited to be here.
We should mention, Tom, that these two are twins.
Fraternal twins, not identical
twins.
Right?
It's good. Mitchell is much bigger and stronger, so that really helps.
That's why I just hold the stick. I just let Mitchell do all the hard work.
That's right, exactly.
And you've been doing some snipe sailing, I guess.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to get into the snipe by one of my mentors, Augie Diaz. Got me into the snipe, and an amazing person. We placed 4th at the Junior Worlds this year or last year now, and just placed 2nd at U.S. Nationals. So we're hoping to take that momentum and hopefully win the Junior Worlds in Miami this coming January. So that's kind of the plan on snipes for now. When I'm not sailing 20 different other boats.
Andy, you and I both did some snipe sailing as kids. A fabulous class, great culture, great kind of not just here in the U.S., but throughout South America, and even in Spain, a couple other countries in Europe. Right? You did some snipes.
Yeah, they're tremendous boats. I was so lucky. Danny Elliott had an old, here in Newport Beach, had an old snipe, which was a Mills built snipe, and it was older than I was. I think I was like 18 or 17 or 18, and it was grandfathered. It was actually slightly different than other slides. It had slightly more waterline. So in about 18 knots of breeze, we were pretty much unbeatable. It was just really fast. But God, I loved it. That class has class. I mean, the best guys, Earl Elms and, the guys back in the day were so helpful to young guys, like me. It's just an incredibly great group of people, as I'm sure Justin would agree.
And
nothing has changed in that class. I mean, everyone has, I still don't know the proper settings, but everyone is willing to put a helping hand in. It's just, everyone should be in this class. It's just truly remarkable how great the class is.
And BYC's Becky Lenhart's family Andy?
Absolutely. Her dad was one of those guys that helped me, and back in the day, and it was awesome. The first real help I got was, I guess I was just 16, and we trailered the boat down to San Diego, and I was so nervous. I'd never had a boat on a trailer or anything, and I forgot just one thing, to put enough gas in the car. So at Oceanside, we ran out of gas. Every night going down to that regatta, everyone stopped.
As you would. That's a nice story.
Yeah.
Justin, you and Mitchell have spent a year now at Harvard. You were celebrated down in South Florida when you both signed letters of intent to go to Harvard and to sail there. You've had a great year. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we were really, really happy to have such a great year. It kind of culminated at the nationals this year. We won the team race nationals, which was great, having 2 freshmen starting and winning it. It was an amazing regatta for us. And then we placed 3rd in the fleet racing component, and it was kind of it was a great year because we were always in the top, we were always contending. We have a great program there, between our coaches Mike and Byrne, and even Ansgar now. I'm sure you guys know Ansgar has been kind of filling in for us as the 3rd coach.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he's a GovCup veteran, and he's kind of that third eyes, the third set of eyes that we really needed. And he's just been such an asset to our team. And we've just had a really great year, and super happy to come away with the win there, and hopefully we keep that rolling into the fall.
Andy, remind us Ansgar's last name. I remember he's from San Diego.
Jordan.
Ansgar Jordan, and from Coronado Yacht Club. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up, Tom. I'm sorry, I just threw a complete blank.
Cool stuff.
I think it's Jordan. Yeah, that you guys, Harvard did great in the nationals, but in the co-ed nationals, you lost to a bunch of girls.
Yeah, that was you can't fault anyone for sailing well. They have a great staff over there working with them between
What school is that?
Oh, the good old. Is it Harvard of the East, Andy? I don't know.
You guys are Stanford of the East.
I'm not totally sure if you're too accurate on that, but I guess it's up to opinions.
Well, and Yale didn't do badly either with an all-female team.
Yeah,
they did quite well.
Yeah, everyone did. Everyone was pretty dialed at that regatta, and it was clearly everyone was disciplined, and it was very, very high level. I don't think I've ever sailed at a more competitive regatta, just because once you get back to school in February, and you start sailing that mid-February, everyone has that 4 months to just start, practicing 4 to 5 days a week. And then, even once school gets out, I think we sailed for 2.5 weeks straight, maybe 1 day off. And, it was the toughest sailing I think I've ever sailed, and it was a pleasure to be a part of.
Cool stuff. Shall we go to Morgan? And we have some slides, Morgan. You're a GovCup vet, as I mentioned at the top of this segment, having sailed last year, not having a great regatta, but you've also done some commentary with us over the years.
Well, we should point out, too, Tom, that the year before in the Governor's Cup, Morgan had a pretty good run.
Morgan, tell us about your Governor's Cup experience, and then we'll go to some of these other slides.
Yeah, well, the year before, the first year I did it, it was my second match race I've ever done. So I was still pretty fresh, and I don't even really know how I got the invite, but I got it, and I showed up, and I didn't really know what to expect. So I just said, yeah, we're still racing sailboats. Let's just go race some sailboats. So sailboats is what we raced, and we did pretty well. And we wound up 3rd, I think. Yeah, 3rd.
Yep.
And we were super stoked on it. And then last year, was not great. We don't really talk about it. I think in the dial-up, we spent a little bit too much time on port tack chill. Not enough time on harbor tack chill. So that was a little rough. We just weren't quite there, but we've been training the whole year, and I think this year should be a different story. And, we've been working at it, and we're super stoked for this year. Got a great team, and we're ready to go.
How about I-14s in San Diego? God, there's another class that I sailed a long time ago. They didn't look like this, though.
Yeah, so the I-14s I've been doing for a while. We won the nationals 2 years ago, and then we did. I think that's the nude regatta. I forget what it's called now. I think they just changed the name.
Yeah, the Helly Hansen Sailing World
Yeah,
Series.
Sailing World Series. Yeah, so
That's
we did
down in
that.
San Diego, right? That's North Island Naval Air Station behind there.
Yeah. So that was our Pacific Coast Championships, and we won that. And our goal is to do Worlds in Garda in 2 years. We were supposed to do them in Germany this last year as a quick stop before 505 Worlds, but then the shipping got all weird, and we can organize a container. So, we've been doing a lot of that, and I'm gonna go to Cork in a couple of weeks and race 14s up there for the North Americans. So I'm really enjoying the skiffs. They're great. 14 is one of my favorite boats out there.
Cork being in Kingston, Ontario, where the lead up, the regattas were to the 1976 Olympics when the main Olympics were in Montreal and the sailing Olympics were in Kingston, Ontario. How about this American Magic sailing you've been doing on the Persico 69Fs?
Yeah, so this fall I was pretty heavily involved in that. I raced a couple events out in Newport, did some tuning things, and it was a really great experience because I've been enjoying foiling. I have a foil board and been doing all that, so it was really cool to get out on 69F with such a great caliber of sailors around me and great coaching staff. It was really an incredible opportunity, and it was super cool going fast. I mean, the first time I got on one of those, I was like, dang, this is really the real deal here. The amount of speed that you have, it's not comparable to anything. So,
and this is leading up to the Youth America's Cup. Have you been chosen to sail with that team yet, or is it still in the process?
Yeah, so unfortunately I'm out on that one, but it took a lot of knowledge away from it, and things didn't work out. I'm not gonna do the cup, but I learned a lot from it, and there's a really cool opportunity.
Well, and you're young.
Yeah.
How about the NACRA 15s? You've had a pretty good go in that class as well.
Yeah, so that's my buddy Kelly Holthus that's driving, and we sailed Orange Bowl together this past year in the Club 420, and we ended up winning that. And so he texted me about a week later, and he said, "What the heck, man? You want to come do NACRA 15 Worlds with me?" And I had never really sailed that much catamarans before that, and we had Randy Smythe coach us for about 2 weeks leading up to it, and we went ahead and did that.
Cool.
So that was another great experience this year.
This must be your latest class.
Yeah, that was the latest class. I went straight from graduation to go wing, and any day we see 10 knots in Newport, I leave my wing rigged on my dock and then hop off and go for a rip. Who knows? Maybe I'll come to the BYC during GovCup on the wing foil.
There you go.
Dressed in your graduation gown?
Yeah, I might have to knock the It's Okay down a class,
Yeah.
Race the beer cans.
Justin, I thought that you were doing this when you were trying to get into Harvard, wearing those colors, but I guess not.
Okay, let's talk a little bit here about the Rose Cup. This is, if I remember well, it's the 2022 Rose Cup. The two of you were fierce competitors in Long Beach for that title. Tell us about this, Morgan. You're trailing Justin here at this stage.
In a pre-start.
Yeah, that was quite the event. It came down to a 5-race series in the finals against us and Callahan, and we used every single race up, and there was just lead changes every other minute. It was completely wild. We were both doing everything more or less correctly, and we had champagne conditions. It was blowing 18 up in Long Beach.
You know that Andy and I penalize anybody who ever uses that expression, champagne sailing conditions.
That's why he's doing it.
I know he is. He's teasing us because it's so
Andy
cliche.
prefers rosé conditions.
Yeah, rosé conditions.
Speaking of rosé, how about the Rosé Cup? Andy, you want to tell us about the Rose Cup?
Sure. Well, a lot of years ago now, I think it was 2010, a bunch of us at Railway Yacht Club were noticing that in the Governor's Cup, the international teams were doing much better comparatively than the American teams. So we thought, let's do a national, let's host a national match racing regatta, which eventually, thanks to Dave Perry, in 2015 became an official U.S. Sailing National Championship. So I did not name the trophy after myself. It was named after me, but despite what Morgan keeps saying. At any rate, it's become a great series. And these guys, I think, Morgan, you told me that, Tom, you and I agree that 2 years ago, the Rose Cup between these two, the final was one of the best finals we've ever seen, because Morgan was right. Everybody was doing exactly what you should be doing, depending on where you were. Morgan, I think you said that your race against Justin at the Rose Cup this year in Sheboygan was even better. Is that right?
Oh yeah, it was way better. It was way better. So I think in Long Beach, we had the wind and it was really cool ripping around. But this year we had about 8 to 10 knots, so there's a lot more tactical and a lot more close quarters, more boat handling. And we used the full series, and not a single weather mark rounding there was a set. Every single time we were just sitting there, we get to the mark, we'd both be, sitting like this, and we'd just go backwards. Then one of us would go upwind again. Nope, no set, so it was truly incredible, and it was probably the best racing I've ever had in my life.
Well, I learned from last year from not, sending it all the way to Northern California
Right.
I learned to unhook myself this year and just wait. That actually helped me a few times, because I realized, maybe it's not best to sail the length of the course 4 times over before I turn around and go downwind.
But what Justin's referring to is that in match racing, it's all about the rules. And tactically, there is a way for a boat to keep another boat literally from rounding the weather mark and sail on. And in this case, we were covering it live with our cameras, and thank God we had a drone, because otherwise it would have been out of camera range. They kept sailing upwind for another, another mile or so. So that's good. You didn't have to do that, but that's great. And we expect the same here. We will do our usual live coverage of the Friday and Saturday racing, and I can hardly wait to see you guys go at it again. It's, these guys, I should say that we don't do our selection process is slightly different in the Governor's Cup than it is for the Rose Cup. But these two guys are clearly the best dinghy sailors among all the Rose Cup competitors this year, and yet they're the youngest and second youngest. The variety of boats you guys sail, what you've done, it's incredible, and I'm just incredibly excited that you guys both decided match racing is kind of fun too. So, we can hardly wait.
And they both tell us about this photo, Andy. They got invitations based on the strength of their performance there, even though neither of them won this year's Rose Cup.
Yeah, the caliber of sailors, one of the most exciting things about the Rose Cup is it gets better every year. And this year, what's Cameron's last name, guys?
Chapman.
Chapman
Peterson.
Chapman Peterson, right? Not Cameron. Chapman Peterson from Stanford of the Stanford beat him, but he's sitting, I believe, ILCAs, or what us old guys call lasers, in Europe or something, Governor's Cup week. So he was unable to attend. So the next two, the selection committee had determined earlier that the first two that could come to the Governor's Cup wanted to, the highest 2 placings would come. And so we got you two, which is really what we expected all along. So it's terrific. You'll find, Justin, I think the conditions in Newport Beach somewhat different than the conditions in Sheboygan.
What else, gentlemen? Anything else? Would you like the final word? We'll just go right around the Zoom. It's a matrix, I guess you'd call that. Justin, any final thoughts?
We're just, the whole team super excited to be coming to, an event that I've heard about for a long time now. And, I'm sure, the name holds up, and, it sounds like a super amazing time, with great competition. And so we're looking forward to a great week of sailing, and we could hardly wait to be in California. So thank you for the opportunity to be on here, and, we'll see you in a few weeks.
Morgan?
Yeah, I've been watching all the videos, studying up, but I also, I was telling Andy last night, we had our team dinner after racing, and I was telling him that for every page of notes that I write on sailing, I write another page of notes on roasting him for the roast night. So you better be prepared.
Morgan's threatening me, but as I said, the last person that tried that, Sam Gilmore, I ground him into the dust. So just be prepared, Morgan.
Well, and be prepared. Justin, he's not seen this before. His first GovCup. You be ready on Monday night, Justin. There will be some gentle ribbing at the Meet the Teams event. Andy then conducts a bit of a roast of all the teams, particularly the skippers afterwards, all in good fun. And we're looking forward to seeing you, all three of you, in just over a week. Okay, that a rather abrupt ending. I forgot, even though I looked at it earlier this morning. Okay, those kids, and the same with the Aussies that we interviewed, and Mr. Colquitt from the UK, and of course Jeffrey Peterson. So we've now done 7 of these, or we've gotten 7 of these kids interviewed, I should say. So it's really been good fun, and we just are so lucky to have wonderful representatives of our sport. And we don't need to look at the interview again, but we want to go to this list. We've had, as I said, we've had now 7, the Aussies on Friday, and now we've had Alexander Colquitt and Jeffrey Peterson previously. Now we got Justin and Morgan. I'm hoping that we get Josh Hyde from New Zealand and Alec Coleman from from Canada, interviewed yet this week. Their schedules, they're busy. We're all busy trying to get ready to go down to GovCup next week. And if we don't get them in the proverbial can, if we don't get them recorded for Friday's show, we'll do it and then run a series of shorties next Tuesday. Now, speaking of which, our GovCup coverage starting next Monday night. You heard the banter back and forth about the Meet the Teams, and it's a fun time. Andy hosts after the dinner, the opening dinner, Meet the Teams and a gentle roast. All the teams go up with the skipper and the crew. Monday night, we'll cover that live starting at 8 p.m. next Monday night, the 24th. And then I'll do the regular Tuesday show from down in Newport Beach. And my guest will be Christine Gribben, the esteemed chair. She's chaired this thing like 7 or 8 years in a row. Does a fabulous job. Then we'll do a morning show every morning, Wednesday through Saturday at 9 a.m., which has become really fun. It used to be kind of hit or miss, and the kids are running around, but now they all sit theater style, and at 9 a.m. when we go live, they're all sitting there watching the show. We have a live studio audience, in effect, and we interview some of the kids, talk about what happened the day before, what's going to happen that day. The parents watch from all over the world.
Yeah, that's a really wonderful thing about that.
Exactly. Yeah. We talk about the parents, and it is great fun. And then Friday day, we'll cover the racing live starting at 11:30 Pacific, and then the press conference that night at 7. Then Saturday, the same thing, 11:30 racing, followed by the final press conference Saturday afternoon at 4:30, plus the award ceremony, all down there at Balboa Yacht Club. No show next Friday, a week from this Friday, because obviously I'll be out on the water doing commentary with Andy Rose and Matt Whitfield.
That's one of the things that isn't always duly noted, and that you're about the only on the water reporting that's going on in sailboat racing now.
That is true, because we have a big boat. Chris Bretschker's family, Commodore Peter Bretschker and Kari Bretschker, have a big 50-something footer that is our broadcast boat, and we're not stuck in a sound booth somewhere in London or at the New York Yacht Club doing the commentary. We're out on the water, able to watch it. Chris Bretschker is our director producer, switching the show from on the water, and after been doing this for 6-7 years now, we're reasonably good at it. But
good drone stuff.
Well, and we have 2 drones, because the drone battery only lasts about 20 minutes. So one drone goes up, and then that one gets recalled. The next one goes up, so they cycle. Yeah. Plus, we now have an on-the-water reporter. We call it the roving reporter in a chase boat with a camera and with an announcer, a commentator, sort of like a sideline reporter. So it's a pretty involved production. It's a lot of fun. All volunteers. It's 25 odd people. Well, we're all odd, but it's 25. So.
Yeah, no, but it's impressive, I think.
It's good fun, and you're right. I think we're about the only group, and that's the way they used to do the America's Cup, on the water, back in New Zealand.
It makes such a difference.
It sure does. When you can look around and see what's going on, and you're not confined to watching the monitors in front of you half a world away, or a couple kilometers away on shore. Okay, so that's next week, starting next Monday night. I hope you can join us for that. It'll be on the BYC GovCup Facebook page and the Balboa Yacht Club YouTube channel, co-stream. And I'll probably also stream it to Sailing Illustrated or my personal page. I haven't decided which. Final note on these 2 kids, and they're typical of all. This is a record number of international. We have 8 teams. There are 12 teams from 8 nations this year. And these kids, as we keep saying, they give you great confidence. Not just that they're going to Yale and Harvard Julia.
Yes.
Not Sanford.
I know.
But they're just great kids, bright kids. And this morning on my Facebook, when they were looking, I guess they were looking at the promos, Chip Johns, who's longtime esteemed, super serious guy and a nice guy in this country, said, "It is nice to see photos of the competitors." He was looking at the promo. It's nice to see photos of competitors in a race where they are not scowling or trying to look tough. I don't understand the tough look photos
Yes. We agree.
we typically see. You agree with that,
Yeah.
right? And then, of course, Lynn, speaking of Lynn Jewel Shore, with whom I spoke earlier this week, she said, 2 incredibly talented sailors. It's great to see them coming along to be our next champions in the world is sailing for years to come. Couldn't put it better. Thank you. There's the photo that I think Chip Johns was talking about that we've been running as the promo for today's episode 4, Road to the GovCup. What happened, Julia, this day in history? On the 18th of July, in 1801, only 50 years before the start of the America's Cup of AC0 in 1851. 1801, here's your first clue. 1801, and this is called, why is my clicker for my changing the slides is a little sticky today. Bass and Flinders, F-L-I, Flinders Point in Cronulla, New South Wales in Australia. That's your first clue. 1801.
That's when the first settlers were imported.
No. Look at all the comments. Look at all the comments.
Yeah.
Is Oz one island or two? UK sends Flinders to find out. David James already has broken the code. I got my comments back too. Is Australia one island or two? The UK sends Flinders out to find. He was a lieutenant, by the way, and you're absolutely right. Here was the second clue. HMS Investigator was the name of the ship from Great Britain. HMS Investigator, circa, that's a painting or whatever you call that, from circa 1802. And this is the aforementioned Lieutenant Matthew Flinders, who, there we go, was born in 1774 and died in 1814. Didn't live very long. He was one of Australia's greatest explorers who was the first to circumnavigate the continent, as David James so rightly put it. And it was he who advocated strongly for the landmass to be called Australia. Do you know what it was named before that?
Oh, Van Diemen's Land or something like that.
That's right. And it was that's well done, Julia. Van Diemen's Land. It was also New Holland. They didn't know. So that's that guy. He was born in England, yada, yada. There you saw it down in the comments. Flinders was promoted to command his own expedition and set out in 1801 to serve. He'd been with Captain Bligh. And he's quite a smart guy. He got the Aboriginal translator Bungaree. He completed the first circumnavigation of the continent in 1803 despite a leaky ship. So there's his trip in the Blue Line from England to Sydney. Got started on this day in history in 1801 from England, got to Sydney, then circumnavigated the continent of Australia aboard the Investigator. Got from Sydney and back to Sydney, and that's what happened in this day in history in 1801. He left England. He set off on a voyage. He was convinced it was one island, not two. He had a botanist and he had an artist and carried on this day, 18th of July, 1801. Okay, so much for that. I thought you Aussies would appreciate that. Did anybody else have that? He was Polly Flinders' big brother. Who's Graham Sweeney saying? Who's Polly Flinders? Jody Shields, thank you. It's pronounced Cronulla. How would I know? Thank you, Jody. Cronulla. Graham Sweeney says his house was built in 1801. Clayton Embley, Captain Bligh, a fantastic sailor and a fair disciplinarian. Destroyed by history.
That could be true.
And who's asking, David James, so the flag, he calls you Mrs. Wedekind. He's your lawyer. David James saying, so the flags in front of Mrs. Wedekind are Denmark, France, and what was the other one?
There's a bunch of them.
Well, these kids are just fantastic, great ambassadors for sailing. Joe Holtzman, spot on. Let's get to the America's Cup. Some interesting developments in the Cup here, AC 37. Coming up is this first report about American Magic, and they capsized in what I think their third day of sailing in Barcelona.
Good day on the water, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great.
Mike
The
Menninger.
forecast was a bit marginal. We had a lot better breeze offshore, and so we did a little bit of a tow to meet the breeze. And but once we got out there, it was a little bit more than we expected, and we had some awesome two-boat testing. So it's a great day.
Yeah, it looked like America was faster everywhere than Magic. Faster and higher, actually, or lower than me. Is that so?
Yeah, America has the foils that we designed on it, and we're just trying to organize and structure tests to try to evaluate the foils and get some good data on them. But yeah, luckily for us, that boat today was going quite well up and downwind, so it's good.
Yeah, you look always under control and on the edge, well settled.
Yeah.
So you are trimmer on the boat?
Yes. Yeah.
And when you're on the leeward side, what's the role on the leeward side for both?
Yeah, so right now the leeward trimmer is trimming the jib, and also just making sure that that we're meeting our arrow targets, so that the windward trimmer can just focus on the traveler and the level of heel, and the leeward trimmer can kind of manage the main and the jib settings. And
the leeward skipper?
I mean, right now he's more or less calling, relative modes to the other boat, and trying to line both boats up in it for good testing.
So, what do you find the hardest bit of your role on the boat on a day like today?
I mean, today's a pretty easy day. I mean, the sea state was pretty mellow, like you saw, and the breeze was, from 8 to 12 knots, so it was pretty easy to keep a consistent level of heel, and yeah, we're just trying to sail to target numbers and see how we go, sort of. So not much in it today as trimmers. I mean, we're just trying to keep the arrow setups pretty consistent between the boats and let the foils do the work.
We see on the runs, we saw like a fair bit wide range of course, like you had to chase the apparent wind, I believe. Is that so? It was just trying to...
Yeah, I mean, before we go into a test, we're given targets to try to sail to. So that may change. You might, from your perspective, we might be sailing a faster boat speed or a slower boat speed, so that might explain kind of the up and down angles. But yeah, I mean, we're just trying to be given targets and try to sail to them. But yeah.
Okay. What is your background? How did you end up here in the Americas?
Well, a lot of sailing. Just a lot of pro sailing on kind of like smaller keel boats, and then working my way up into TP52s and Maxi 72s, and not a ton of foiling experience, so it's relatively new to me, but it's yeah, just been kind of used to working with bigger teams, so yeah.
All right.
Feels good to be here.
Okay, there it is. Gordon Smith saying, yeah, another outstanding interviewer. Not. Yeah, I ran the whole thing because I wanted to give Michael Menninger a bit of airtime. He's a bright guy actually from Newport Beach as well, Newport Harbor Yacht Club. But they did flip, no big deal. But as Stingray is saying, bourbon conditions were here in Barcelona. He doesn't want to say champagne, sailing conditions. But there's been a lot of commentary about how bumpy it is. We've been telling you that for months, for years now, ever since that venue was named, having done the Olympics there as a judge in 1992. But this is what was really the most interesting development here in the last couple days is this, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this editorial in Seahorse Magazine by the esteemed Andrew Hurst, who's been the editor of that pub, but that's still the best sailing pub in the world. Andrew's been the editor of that for a long, long time. And he writes, I'm just going to read the first couple, 3 paragraphs, but I commend it to you. And you go to, if you don't have a Seahorse subscription, you can get it and get it digitally. Get it down to your phone or your iPad or your computer. He says, easy, boys, is the headline. Dennis Conner's favorite expression when describing America's Cup politics was, quote, always bet on self-interest. This isn't quite accurate because Dennis would say, always bet on self-interest. That horse is always running, unquote. So what's happened with Team New Zealand in the 37th America's Cup? The cries of hypocrisy and gold digging from the press back home in Auckland are growing loud enough to be getting traction in the European media. For a team of extraordinary sportsmen who've long been admired around the world, not least by their opponents, the men and women of Team New Zealand are allowing themselves to be tarnished in a way those of the ground doing the hard yards should have concerns about. The coin is dropping. In Barcelona, Team NZ are still the people who brought the cup to their great city, but the initial adulation is waning. Asked to rank the teams who, since the cup was awarded to the city, have put the most into contributing to a great event and made the most effort to take the people of Barcelona with them, I would hazard a guess that with 15 months to go to the match, Team New Zealand would be around bottom of the pack.
Wow.
And the article goes for at least for ETNZ downhill from there. But it's a lot of, Andrew is saying, and I don't know Andrew well. We've known each other since forever, but I don't know him well. I haven't talked to him in months, if maybe a year even. But I commend this editorial to you. I suspect some of it is because the Brits are so unhappy. He talks about Team New Zealand dictating where you can put the sponsor logos on your boat and some of the other economic circumstances. But I'll go back and just read the last 4 paragraphs just above "to be fair" there, where they quote again Dennis. So back to Dennis. In fact, the paragraph above that. To date, there have been other indicators too, that Dennis was once again bang on the money. Territorial slap-arounds about sponsor space on the boats and elsewhere. The position of Team New Zealand, has been made 100% clear, quote, you do what we say you can do, unquote. So back to Dennis and what might fundamentally drive any string of decisions that appear to maximize a flow of revenue in a single direction? Asked and answered, Your Honor. To be fair, is the final couple paragraphs. Everyone deserves a final payday within reason. Ask a derivatives trader or a rock band on its first farewell tour. But not infrequently, a big payday backfires. You risk too much. Perhaps you should have quit at the top. Now you need another farewell tour. Having roped in a well-resourced, ambitious venue like Jeddah, if Team New Zealand defend the cup, then Barcelona may feel like a warm-up act. How about one more, even bigger leaving party? But remember another saying, if you're on the back of the tiger. You know the rest of that quote, Julia?
I forgot it.
Well, if you're on the back of the tiger, it's tough to get off, is what the implications are. But it's actually a Churchillian quote from 1937 that one had to look up today to be sure to get it right. He gave a famously this just before the war, famous speech. And he said, quote, dictators ride to and fro upon tigers from which they dare not dismount.
I
Unquote.
don't know that I know that quote, and it's a good one.
What do you think of that?
I like it.
Now, before Julie Aarons goes off on me because she thinks that I'm too tough on Mr. Dalton, I mean, this is from the leading yacht racing publication in the world, Seahorse Magazine, the RORC's own publication, ostensibly. And if they're saying that and saying it at this point, there are... And out loud, right, Julia?
Mm-hmm.
There are some problems in America's Cup land. Stingray, Grant Dalton needs to learn eat veggies, not friends.
Mm-hmm.
Gordon Smith, excellent historical quote from Churchill. Yes, indeed. David James, if one can't sail in 8 to 12, then should one even sail? I mean, that's the problem. It's going to be, the conditions are tough. And there's been other, as some of you sent me, I'm not going to go into all those things today, but there have been other publications saying about how the conditions are so difficult and why Alinghi, having sailed there now for better part of a year, if not longer, might really have a quite an advantage. We'll see. I'm sure the other teams will quickly catch up. Ed Worley saying, when you become dependent for survival dollars, you lose control of your own fate and options.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I commend that to you. Seahorse magazine, you can go to, I can't remember the URL, but if you don't have, it doesn't cost much, $10 a month or something like that, even less maybe for the digital copy, comes down to your computer or iPad. You can get the whole magazine. Good stuff. Things weren't out so well for Chamberlain. Yeah, right. Okay, David James. Now we get to, this is a corrector Croutonic segment, and we're going to switch gears a bit because apropos what we just talked about, venues and about venues buying, paying big money to get events to come. There's been an amazing development overnight in Australia. With less than 1,000 days to go to the Commonwealth Games. Now, I should preface this by saying sailing is not in the next Commonwealth Games. They weren't in the previous one, although it's an optional sport that a lot of people were saying should be in the Commonwealth Games, especially one being hosted in Melbourne, in the state of Victoria, down under. So with less than 1,000 days to go, today, the state premier, the prime minister, the president, they call it the premier, pulled the plug. And I watched the press conference in amazement, utter amazement last night. Victoria has scrapped plans to host the 2026 Commonwealth Games because of funding issues, the state premier Daniel Andrews has announced. Victoria 2026 staff were called into a meeting shortly after 9 a.m. today, Tuesday, just 30 minutes before Andrews publicly announced the news. Quote, "We have informed the Commonwealth Games authorities of our decision to seek to terminate the contract and to not host the games," Andrews told a hastily arranged press conference in Melbourne. Again, it was today. It's, of course, Wednesday down there now. Now, here's the gentleman, and he was pretty articulate, but he was pretty blunt. He had his deputy state premier with him. His name's Daniel Andrews, and he said, as you just heard, we've informed the Commonwealth Games authorities of our decision to seek to terminate the contract and not to host the games. So with less than 1,000 days to go, rather, this was the scene in Birmingham where the last ones were held in, 2022, was it? Next stop, Victoria, appears not to be the case. The Commonwealth Games Federation claimed that it had been given, quote, only given 8 hours notice that no consideration was given to discussing the situation, and that no consideration was given to discussing the situation to jointly find solutions prior to this decision being reached by the government. Andrews revealed in his press conference that with 973 days to go until the start of the games, the original forecast budget for the event of Australian dollars 2.6 billion, which we don't do all those translations, you all know, was now expected to be Australian dollars 6 billion.
Mm-hmm.
4 billion US. Now that's a pretty amazing development, and there's no sailing in the 2026 games, although there were videos everywhere suggesting that you're doing it in Australia, in Melbourne, one of the great sports capitals and sailing capitals in the world. Why aren't you doing that event? So Alistair, I wrote to Alistair last night and said, Mr. President, billion. Did I say Alistair? And the guy kept saying, look, why spend these billions of dollars for a 12-day sporting event? We could be spending it on hospitals and other things. And I said, Alistair, what's your view? And having no idea what his view was. And of course, Alistair is the president of Australian Sailing and FOSI and Super FOSI and so on. And he said, a long reply to me, and I ask you in the terms of this is correct or Croutonic, not Alistair's view, but this whole thing. According to my sources, Alistair says, this tearing up of the deal could cost the Victorian taxpayers, meaning him, up to $500 million in bid cost, staff hired, premises secured, professional advice, potential penalties from contractors, et cetera, et cetera. Unfortunately, this is typical of this Andrews government. One previous case where he ripped up a freeway contract cost us 1.2 billion Aussie. So the real reasons for pulling out, bloody politics and bloody politicians, Alistair asserts. Disturbingly, though, I am sure it will be increasingly difficult to find host cities who believe they can host major events without losing a packet. It sure will be interesting to see if they can find someone to step up now to host the 2026 Commonwealth Games. They have only been canceled once before, ... in World War II. I will be fascinated in the Sailing Illustrated discussion on this. Thank you, Alistair. Best regards. Thank you, Alistair. So, I put this to you as correct or crutonic. Was this gentleman correct? We probably don't have enough info. Alistair thinks it clearly was not correct. He thinks it was going to cost a lot less than this 11, whatever the number was that it had blown up to. But I put this to you in the context of what we see going on in the America's Cup, what we see going on in the Olympics, and these not only the sheer cost of doing these games and events, but the ballooning costs. And once again, I think the problem, Julia, is that this is the America's Cup's a silly sailboat race. It does not have to be a lot of falderall and a lot of blown up fireworks and all sorts of stuff. Go conduct a sailboat race.
It's the infrastructure buildup that is the big bucks and time.
Exactly.
And do you need a stadium? No.
Well, but I think everybody in doing these games have got to stop trying to outdo the previous one, first of all, and they've got to rationalize and bring the cost back the way Peter Ubroth did, who headed the 84 games in L.A.
And why didn't people follow that model?
Well, politicians, Ed Worley just said it, cost balloon and everyone wants a cut of government dollars. And suddenly you're in a position of handing out money to a lot of your friends, to contractors who then fund your own political ambitions and your campaign costs. Jody Shields saying, interesting to see what he says. I'm just reading this for the first time. This Pelican was in charge of Victoria during the longest lockdown in the world during the pandemic. He screws up anything he is in charge of. Interesting, Jody's comment. Apparently, the CGHQ, Commonwealth Games headquarters, share Alistair Murray's suspicion about it being too difficult to find a new host city, a situation that should not be necessary. And Ed Worley, as I mentioned a moment ago, cost balloon, and everyone wants a cut of the government dollars. Ed Worley also saying politicians are the core reason for problems everywhere.
Yeah, I keep thinking my whole background and reason for being is in volunteerism. And volunteerism is the thing that makes the United States different from any other nation. It is the only thing that makes us different from every other place. And this is another example.
And particularly California.
No, the whole United States is
much more.
Well, actually, the U.S. There are some instances of volunteerism around the world, and every nation has a little bit of it, but it doesn't compare to what's going on here. And
spot on.
And if volunteers were doing it and had to get it out of their own pocket one way or another, they wouldn't build new stadiums, and they'd find out a way to speed things up.
Exactly.
And nobody'd be getting $300,000 salaries for doing.
Exactly. I'll bet you the guy who's the head of the Commonwealth Games local organizing committee is getting a lot more than $300,000 too.
I mean, it's
and they probably got a staff of way too many people and yada yada. Joe Holtzman, I think, is spot on. We need the Craig Keevy attitude, the guy we had on the show when I was in Michigan.
Yes.
The past Commodore is doing the conservation kind of on his own, the own nickel. We need the Craig Keevy attitude. Politics be damned, get on with the job. Jody's, who of course is an Australian, saying there is a bigger game playing out here in Oz. We are about to vote on a constitutional change that could open the door for us to be removed from the Commonwealth. Watch this space. Now that's interesting. So that's why I say, is this correct or crutonic? And when I first watched the guy's press conference last night, not knowing any of the stuff that Alistair and Jody and others are putting forward, it sounded reasonable. He said we should be spending these billions on hospitals and schools and things, not on a 12-day sporting event.
Yeah.
but you start to hear that, and I didn't run all of Alistair's comment because he said, it makes us look bad.
Yeah.
We're trying to be the sports capital of the world. We pride ourselves on doing a great job with the Formula One, with the Australian Open, with the tennis, and now we do this. Something doesn't smell right. Clayton Embley, well said, Julia. I ran a program and the volunteers couldn't find enough ways to improve the event, and the hired professionals had delusions of adequacy.
Oh, a nice comment.
Huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice comment, Clayton.
Exactly. Alex Kent, it's ad dollars that enable huge athletic-related salaries thanks to the baseball commissioner who made it happen originally.
Unfortunately, that may be true.
Okay, well, we're going to follow this story because, again, sailing's not involved, at least hasn't been for somebody tell me when the last time sailing was in the Commonwealth Games, but it's been years. But I do think it is, there's implications for our sport and sport everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we followed that. Speaking of our sport, we've got the Sail Grand Prix coming up here this weekend, the second one of the season of the 2023-2024 season. It's in L.A. You remember the first one? Remember where that was? In Chicago at Navy Pier last month, the 16th through the 17th of June. Light air event, a little bit of breeze on Saturday, very light on Sunday. It was won by the Kiwis, Bravo Zulu to them. And they are now, that is Pete Burling and co. at the top of the leaderboard. And Australian second, no surprise, they're doing well. Canada, they're doing okay. Denmark, Nikolai Sehested, Phil Robertson the Kiwi sailing for Canada. Nikolai Sehested for Denmark, and Diego Botín, surprisingly, for Spain in fifth. Jimmy Spithill struggled, as you all probably remember. The U.S. skipper CEO was ninth, but the new team, the German team, Eric Heil, we're all holding out great hope for them. They did not do so well, and a video came out today, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but a cool video from SailGP, with members of the other teams giving advice to Team Germany.
Top tips for a new team.
I got one.
There's so many things.
I think my most important tip for Germany might be once you feel like you've got control of the boat and you feel good, get in amongst it. Get in on the start line, push, fight, use your rights, and don't be intimidated by other teams and really take it to them.
Stick to the same team for a long period, and that will make all the routines super efficient.
Definitely have a coffee cup ready to go because you're going to need way more coffee to get through a day.
Check your tension of the pepper cracker throughout the day because it changes.
Make sure you pack a good lunch. I got one, got a massive one. If you're at the crane and you want to unlock the front wheels of the boat, just have somebody wiggle the bow and the other one's pulling the pin, and it's super easy.
First of all, don't rush and stress it. There will be some bad results, and just take your time learning. Second would be don't crash. Penalty points are expensive. And third is enjoy it because it is pretty cool.
For the German team, if I have one tip to give, is to be really good at analyzing what the good teams are doing, analyzing the data and diving into it and understanding, what the good teams are doing different.
Use experience to cut a few corners.
Don't put too much pressure on the racing to start with. Just make sure you're getting the communication, the boat handling, all of that kind of sorted in as low a pressure environment as you can.
One of the important things in SailGP is probably the data analysis. We have to work a lot on it and spend some times in front of the computer and try to find where are the key points to perform in this league.
Yeah, for the Germans, just enjoy the process. It's well, for us anyway, it was a huge learning curve the first few events. So it's but a really fun road ahead and cool group that we've raced against a lot in the past. So it's going to be awesome to see them on the start line.
I think the best tip is teamwork. Collaborating together as a team will definitely getting you furthest.
Well, we'll see how that all goes this coming weekend in L.A. I am seeing Jody Shields says it looks like it will be very light this weekend in L.A. It's going to be hot, hot, hot. Yes, it is, Ed Worley. And maybe it's going to be light, too. The weekend schedule, some of these events are Friday, Saturday racing. This one is Saturday, Sunday. So Saturday the 22nd, the racing is from 4 to 5:30. Likewise on Sunday the 23rd, 1600 to 1730 Pacific Daylight Time, which works out to be 2300 to 24:30 or 030 +1 the next morning. UTC, if you're watching it.
Wind should come up, though.
Well, not necessarily. If it's their big high-pressure center over L.A. and there won't be much of a sea breeze, and we'll see what happens.
But if there is, it'll be at those hours.
Well, maybe. Hope. One can only hope. You're right. One can only hope. Now, what's happening after this? Well, the next event in this season 4 is in France, Saint-Tropez. They're skipping August, taking August off, as you would. It's a holiday month for many people. And that will be in Saint-Tropez the 9th and 10th of September. And then just skipping ahead, they're in Europe and then down under and then back here in North America at the end of the year. They're in Bermuda and event 9, and then up Canada. And see, Canada, I've circled that one because we don't know where the Canadian event is going to be. They have not announced that yet, that Canadian event. And there's that team, of course, may be up for sale, so maybe they won't even get an event. We'll see. And then finally, after New York City, back here in San Francisco for the 12th and final event next July, a year from now, Julia.
That's all right.
A year from now. So that's what's going on in SailGP. We'll watch it. One question Stingray and I were trying to sort out this morning. Thanks again for helping me with that. We're still not sure because on the SailGP website, it says, here are your local times. And they got a big, wide cast of broadcasters, list of broadcasters all over the world, various countries. Here in the U.S., CBS Sports Network, which is a channel that I don't have on my cable system. I don't know if you have it upstairs, Julia, on your system, but CBS SN, Sports Network, and it's delayed about an hour after racing, or hour, maybe hour and a half. Whether they also will air it live on YouTube and or the app, the SailGP app, I don't know, and I couldn't make it out on the website because it said if you're not listed, if countries are not listed above, you can watch it on YouTube. So I don't know if they're going to geo-block it here in the U.S. so we can't watch it live. We'll see. And as I said, Stingray and I could not work that out. Stingray's saying, speaking of him, up in Seattle, he's saying, I'm guessing Team Canada has a new owner and that Outer Ridge may be the newly announced helm. That's interesting. I wonder,
In the know, Mr. Stingray.
yeah, I doubt it because Outer Ridge is with Team New Zealand now, and I think he's pretty busy with Team New Zealand going forward. Ted Ryman, I agree. It's a shame SailGP does not have an event this year in GBR. Graham Sweeney's couple comments here. Yep, we'll go back. Sailing has never been an official sport in the Commonwealth Games, but was unofficial in 2003, David James. Thank you. Yeah, it's always been an optional sport as far as I understood. So we shall see how that all plays out this weekend in L.A. And one of the things several of you speculated on is that Sir Ben Ainsley, as I stretch my poor old back, Sir Ben and Jimmy Spithill are simply too old for this foiling madness that goes on now. A couple of you pinged me privately and said it's going to be very interesting to see over the next couple of events if Jimmy can get going or not. Maybe he's just over the hill.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't wish it on him. He's a good friend, and we did and won several America's Cup campaigns together, and I hope he's still good. But this is a tough game. One never knows. Okay, that gets us to the last leg, and I have a fairly extensive last leg segment here today. We're an hour and 48 minutes into the show, and it has to do, if you haven't seen it, the news reports about NZL 20, the America's Cup yacht stranded in North Auckland. Locals worried about environmental risks. I'm not really sure what the environmental risks are. The carbon is inert. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to break up, I don't think. But how it escaped from the shipyard where it was being held is anybody's guess. Here's the video. I guess I have to voice it. NZL 20 used by Team New Zealand in the 92 Cup. It's on the eastern side of Tyndall's Bay and Whangaparoa. It was at the Gulf Harbor Marina for over 10 years. The yacht was recently put up for sale. In high tide, the boat is inaccessible except for those prepared to wade out to it. At low tide, the yacht is seen perching on a large rock shelf, its name showing. that's stuff.co.nz, that report. Here's a picture of the boat, NZL 20, one that was racing in San Diego, 1992. This was the little red pointer. This was a fast little boat, especially in light air. And here is a video recollecting all of that.
In the 1990s, NZL 20 was unique in its design as a competition yacht and was cutting edge. While her infamous bowsprit used to cut through waves, it now forlornly protrudes through trees on the side of a road on Auckland's Hibiscus coast.
She's been with us for at least 10 years. There have been a couple of owners in that time, and currently it's the marina itself that owns the boat, and we're looking for a buyer. Well, what we would like is for the boat, to see the boat restored and back in the water. It's an amazing opportunity for someone. So our driver is really to find the right owner who's got the passion to get the boat back in action.
Don Cowie was part of the NZL 20's crew in the early 1990s.
NZL 20 is an important part of the history of the New Zealand Challenge for the America's Cup. It was the second challenge in San Diego, and it sort of brought the team together and made them realise what they required to win the Cup, and they did that successfully in 1995. NZL 20 is unique because it was a tandem-keeled America's Cup boat in 1992, but it was also quite light in displacement, which meant it was small sail area and a small boat compared to the boats we raced against. The other thing that was unique with NZL 20 is it had a bowsprit. The bowsprit enabled us to jibe the boat a little bit quicker and a little easier. It was deemed legal by the rules advisors during the Louis Vuitton Cup, but then we got a bit of a sneak attack from the Italians during the final of the Louis Vuitton Cup, and they deemed it illegal.
So the reason it needs to be the right person is because they'd be taking on a project. I mean, it does need some work, so it needs to be somebody who's got the passion to restore the boat. In terms of what we would like for the boat, we don't have a figure in mind. We're really open to offers, and it's less about the cost and the money for us. It's more about seeing the boat restored and back in the water as a legacy.
Of course, NZL 20 is a great part of the New Zealand America's Cup history. It's the last boat that Sir Michael Fay sponsored, and it was actually New Zealand Challenge. It would be great if the boat was restored, but the boat has been sitting around for a considerable amount of time now. It's a cool boat, but not all cool boats are made to continue sailing.
Okay, so that is also from stuff.co.com from a year ago. And those of you talking about the keel, this was a quick boat in the light. We, as the defender, I ran the 92 Cup for San Diego Yacht Club, and we were really worried about this boat because it showed really amazing bursts of speed. And this is from America's Cup History, a website that's actually an Austrian website. The Challenger from New Zealand carried a tandem keel with a 9-ton lead bulb between the keels. She had no rudder blade, but was steered by flaps on the keel. Yacht circles expected that NZL 20 would win the LVC because she was light, fast, and handy, with a very good Kiwi crew, professional. With this trick, the boat could sail. They did the jibing. I won't bore you with it, but they had a system up on the bowsprit that turned out to be illegal, according to the jury, and I was helping. When I write my book, I'll tell you about helping as the defender, helping the challenger, the ultimate challenger of the Italians. Paul Callahan was driving to protest this thing because it was not legal, in my opinion. And despite a controversy of really the racing rules of sailing were infringed, NZL 20 was fined, meaning they were penalized, and lost one race in the final following a protest by ITA 25, meaning Il Moro di Venezia, Raul Gardini's boat that Callahan was skippering. At the end of the crew was changed. Conventional spinnaker maneuver could not be extensively trained. And at the end of the day, NZL 20 lost the final close, I think it was 5-3. And it was actually, they won quite a few of the early races. And then Callahan protested in the middle of the LVC final, and that flopped the thing around a little bit like 2013 here, although there was no protest. And ultimately, the Italians went on to win that series and then lost to Bill Koch. Here are all the skippers, by the way, from 92. with Buddy Malgus, the late great there, second from the left, Bill Koch, and then across through KR just to the right of the cup as we look at it, and many of others notables that you will recognize.
That's a good picture.
Isn't that a good picture?
Mm-hmm.
I thought you would enjoy that.
I do.
That's taken atop the, I didn't know, I don't remember the picture. I found it online today, but it's taken atop the, I believe, the convention center, San Diego Convention Center. There is NZL20. It's on the rocks today, and there were a bunch of comments from folks saying, you know, so much for America's Cup boats being, having a long life, and they don't. After the 12 meters, after that, Gordon Smith saying so much for past AC boats having a long lifespan, indeed. So, I don't know. That boat, how it got out of the Gulf Harbor Marina and over on the rocks is beyond me and probably a lot of other people. Unless any of you in New Zealand have an up-to-date report. That's what I have been seeing online over the last couple of days, thanks to Hamish Ross and a few others who sent that info to us. And that will help us wrap this one up as we get to the finish line for today. When Bill Wingrove's photo, a little bit different finish line too. The winners of the day. This is a class I frankly had never heard of. It's called the Musto Skiff. It's when the family still owned it, and they've just had their 12th or having their 12th Worlds in Torbole on Lago di Garda. Have a look at this video. It's a fabulous looking class that, again, I'd never heard of. I had to ping Andrew Pindar this morning and a couple others to see what you knew about it. And it looks like a great venue, a terrific Worlds winner. They're the winners of the day. Have a look.
Today, God had turned it on. Absolutely beautiful conditions. We had warm weather. The Aura came in on time. And the race committee did a fantastic job. And I tell you what, the racing was the only thing hotter than the weather.
Absolutely stunning conditions out there. Beautiful sailing. Off to the pasta party, and we'll have a good night of it.
These guys in this class at this event are clearly the winners of the day. Anybody that gets to sail Lake Garda in these conditions. And yeah, I don't know if this is the class that Tom Morris, that Mozzie sales guy, sails, but what a fantastic look. And obviously a cool event. Delighted to declare them the winners of the day. The losers of the day, I don't think the Olympic athletes. I hope we all come together in this country and support our athletes, but U.S. Sailing has really screwed the proverbial pooch here, and they are the croutons du jour. I'm not going to turn the logo upside down. I don't need to, but the leadership of U.S. Sailing should be ashamed of themselves. They need to have a good look in the mirror and stop gazing at their navels and get the organization sorted out, as we discussed earlier in today's show. Okay, enough of all that. Julia?
Yes.
That gets us to Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. And all of today's came from Graham Sweeney in Scotland. He says in 2007, Scotland spent 6 months of research and $162,000, almost $163,000 to create a new slogan that would boost tourism. They came up with, "Welcome to Scotland."
Lovely. Well, at least everybody could agree on it.
Wasn't that good?
Yeah.
And Graham Nunn also sent this one. These are kind of going in order from clean to less so. Why do seagulls fly over the sea? Because if they flew over the bay, they would be called bagels. Okay, okay. It's so corny that it's funny.
Uh-huh.
And the next one, thanks, Graham, for that. This one, Dad, what's the difference between confident and confidential? You are my son. Of that I am confident. Your friend Billy next door is also my son, and that's confidential. Not sailing related, but they were funny, and I just I looked at Graham's and thought we gotta go with these. So this is the final one, Julia, and you can shake your finger at it if you want, but there it is. First time at the spa. Huh? You want to shake your finger at Graham? You got to admit it's funny.
It is funny.
Huh? Graham Sweeney of Great Britain says that one in. Julia, your witness.
Yes. Don't deny other people the right to see this. Like, follow, and share. And look carefully at who you're sharing it with. You have a great choice of who to share it with. And
Just share it to your own page, right?
Oh, you can do it beyond that.
Thanks, everybody. Too clean, Sweeney. Ha ha. Everybody's laughing. Thank you, Julie and Tom. Good show. Thanks, Don Lunabos. And remember that if you are so inclined, you can comment, even if you're watching it, as many of you do, most of you do, watch it in replay. And if you give us $1 or $2 or $5 a month, we'd appreciate that. Become a patron at patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Thanks to everybody who gave us material, meaning images, video, and audio for today's show. Julia, any final thoughts?
No, it's just a reminder of what a nice, rollicking, and diverse sport sailing is.
And these kids are fabulous.
Oh, yes.
Kids are fabulous. We hope to have some more of them with us on 2 more to interview on Friday. We're still, as I say, hopefully, because we're working on Josh Hyde from New Zealand, Alec Coleman from Canada. I want to get this Irish kid on. I hear he's funny and clever and bright, Tom Higgins. And Timothy Rossi from France and Nicholas Bernal from Brazil have said, our English is not that great. And I said, guys, come on, let's just do it. I think you'll find it easy and fun. See you Friday. Hope to see you Friday. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.